Derrick Broze. This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance. I'm here in Standing Rock.
That man is wanted in 5 different countries: Chile, Argentina, Brazil.
We've been fighting a long time. We've all lost so very much. So many loved ones gone.
Don't you fucking tease that horse!
You are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Above all, stay alive. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we are going to bring you another important interview. A returning guest and a friend of mine, Dave of the Mindful Militants. We'll bring him on in just a moment. First, though, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com, which is where you can find all of my content, documentaries, books, essays, articles, everything that you could possibly want to be informed about what's going on in the world right now. Things like the Great Reset, the second wave, the lockdowns, U.S. elections, all that and more is going to be found at theconsciousresistance.com. So bookmark that. You can find us at float.app. Hopefully, if you're watching through Float. We are live all across Facebook, but we are also on the float.app/conscious resistance, as well as DLive on the Conscious Resistance. We're not live on YouTube right now because we're still banned for another week. But you can also find our work at minds.com/the Conscious Resistance Network. On Hive, you can join our text list so you get updates about our work. You can find our Telegram channel. Finally, if you want to find our videos in places other than YouTube, you can find us on library.tv and BitChute. All those links are found on the front page of theconsciousresistance.com. And as I said, we're getting ready to talk to Dave. I talked to him way back in January, seems like a whole nother life ago, building freedom cells and mutual aid networks with Mindful Militants. And if you want to get more on some background of what Dave does and Mindful Militants and all that, we're not going to cover that 101 stuff today. You can go back and find that in the old interview, or you can visit mindfulmilitants.org to learn more about what they do. But today we're going to talk specifically about how Dave and Mindful Militants are handling the lockdowns in Australia. He is living in Melbourne, Australia, which some of you have known. You followed my work. I've talked about what's going on in Australia and New Zealand. He is living it firsthand, and he's going to talk to us about that, as well as how his freedom cell, his community, in a decentralized manner, is sort of combating and dealing with this reality. So without further ado, what's going on, Brother Dave?
Hey, Derek, man, fantastic to be on the Conscious Resistance again. And yeah, firstly, I just want to say, man, I love your new intro. Like that new intro you guys have edited is fantastic.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's like it gets you pumped up, I think.
Yeah, it gets you really pumped up, and it's a fantastic quote. And thanks for streaming live. Thanks to anyone watching. Yeah. We're also streaming live on our YouTube channel right now, Mindful Militants.
Sweet.
Yeah,
awesome.
So we're learning a few tricks of the trade as we progress and get better in our content journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just let me show the website again for those who are watching this. We're also going to be, what I've been doing also is taking the audio versions and posting them on our Spotify channel. So some of you might be listening, but awesome. The website is mindfulmilitants.org. And the headline, Supporting Sovereignty with the Power of Education, Health, and Community. I really love the way you kind of narrowed that down, brother. And let's just jump right into it, man. Like I told everybody earlier, if you want to hear the 101, get to know you a little background, they can listen to our previous interview. But today we're dealing with more pressing matters.
A lot has changed since that first interview.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That talk was in January, and it's now October, and you're living in a totally different reality. So tell everybody, let's talk about that. You live in Melbourne. What's going on? How has COVID affected your whole life now?
Yeah, so I live in Melbourne. I live in sort of like the suburbia of Melbourne in Victoria, and it's been interesting seeing not only you report on the situations in Victoria, but a lot of other journalists that I've followed. And it's crazy to have this spotlight on something that we are living through. And a lot of people, I guess, have seen that Victoria has some of the worst lockdowns and some of the longest lockdowns. We're in stage 4 lockdowns, and it's been going on so long that people and like the psychological effects of people are just becoming nearly apathetic to what's going on. So it's to summarize it in a quick word, it's really bad. Like we can't go out 5 kilometers of our home. There are checkpoints set up around the roads. You can be driving to work. My partner, Jade, my girlfriend, was literally a block away from her own home in our suburb. We live in the same suburb. She was a block away from her home without a mask on, getting groceries, and cops pulled her over, had the sirens on, pulled her over, started questioning, looking up her address, checking the database to make sure she's within 5 kilometers of that house. checking if she, and the thing is, you're allowed to leave your house, but it's only for like 1 hour of exercise, allocated exercise. And if you're beyond that, you need a lawful reason to even leave the house. So this police officer who was incredibly, and we have the video of it, it was incredibly intimidating, wanted to search her bag to make sure she legitimately had groceries in her fucking bag. As well as like he just went through, and the people that she was with, oh, is this your partner? Just went through literally all of it. And then there was a female officer, and she was at the point of being like, I just want my fine. Can you just give me my fine? I don't want this interaction to, progress anymore. And then he starts playing psychological mind games of being like, oh, we might fine you, we might not, we haven't decided yet. So they're literally stringing out an involuntary interaction just to fucking flex their authority. And, that isn't the first cop we've had to deal with. I work as a chef at a place that's just a couple streets away from my house. Everyone there wears masks. I'm sort of, I did not enjoy wearing a mask at the start, but my managers unfortunately said they might cut my shifts if I do. So I do wear one. But on a day that I wasn't even there, we had cops come into our workplace because someone in the community has called the cops that staff aren't wearing masks, and everyone there is wearing masks. So the only person that would have been wearing a mask is someone who was maybe at a barista machine who took the mask off and put it down their chin. And cops are being called out to that. So it's interesting the level of snitching we have around us. I've had people pull up to me in the side of their cars and harass me out their windows for not wearing masks and stuff like that. And I even have friends who live out in Ballarat, and Ballarat is a famous place where the video of that pregnant woman who was arrested came out of. And in Ballarat, they're already rolling out facial recognition cameras that recognize if you wear a mask, and if you want to enter the grocery store to buy fucking vegetables and food, there's a turnstile and it'll turn green if you are wearing a mask, and it'll turn red if you're not wearing a mask, and it physically won't let you in. So there's just like, it seems like, and it's making no sense. And this comes all off, yesterday the omnibus bill was passed in Victoria, and I was staying up to date with that. There's been some amendments made to it, but now basically they can search your house without a warrant if they believe you're posing a significant risk to public health. There are these certain authorized officers that were only about 4 people. There was the chief health officer, which is the person that it can enact all these claims. Now, anyone that's a WorkSafe official or a health official or anyone with specific or relevant skills can now be made to be an authorized officer. And they tried to pass in the bill. It got amended and scrapped, but they tried to allow authorized officers to physically detain people who don't want to get tested. And there's already these places that are isolation centers where they want to move you. So it's really hard to keep up to date with what's happening in Victoria, because it seems like every 1 to 2 weeks there's something different happening, and there's some new bill that's being passed and something is happening, and we're not even allowed to protest about it, which is one of the worst things. Like, we don't even have the exercise right to free assembly. Like, as you can see in one of the videos that we made, we tried to go out and report it and film it, and I ended up getting, rushed by 6 or 7 robo-cops wearing full riot police, thrown to the ground, handcuffed, and dragged away while bleeding out of my face. And I have the fine right here, which is my COVID fine of $2,000 for leaving my own fucking house. So that's the situation that we're unfortunately dealing with in Victoria. And it's become a cat and mouse game with my collective and my freedom cell. We're dodging the restrictions in a house. Like, I have to literally fake a business registration and get an ABN and sign my own work permit so I can go to a hardware store to buy soil to fucking put in my garden. If someone told me last year that, hey man, you'd have to commit a fake permit and register fake businesses to go to a hardware store, I'd be like, brother, you're smoking crack. But alas, here we are.
Well, before we get into that, because I definitely want you to talk about some of these strategies, Dave, because I think that it's weird, right? We're physically living on the same planet, but we're also existing in a different reality, because the US is getting more and more crazy. I'm here in Mexico where things are relatively calm and completely different. But what you are experiencing right now, and I'm saying this to every American and European who's hearing this, I believe is clearly the direction that these people want things to go. I mean, it's already happening in China, like you mentioned, the facial recognition and these sort of things. That's already a reality in China, where they can find you in 3 seconds anywhere in the country, especially in Beijing. And they have a lot of the, you talk about like using the QR codes or the color codes and these different things. That model is directly coming from China and this technocracy, the technocratic state. But now we're witnessing it rolled out in Australia, New Zealand, and elsewhere. I just was talking a little bit ago about the Philippines rolling out a national ID as, part of COVID, of course. And you're talking about omnibus bills. Did you see similar things happening like this, if you can remember, post 9/11? Like, because typically this is what happens. Like, even though Australia didn't get attacked by 9/11, all of America's allies all were like, well, we need terror legislation. We all need to, So was there a similar kind of atmosphere?
Yeah, like I've often said to people, like the bill, like a lot of the bills that allow these state of emergencies and state of disasters, that allow things to be brought in, like scrapping council meetings and stopping parliament legislation meetings and stopping House of Parliament meetings and everything from 5-kilometer rules, and even having a curfew, are all under these state of disaster and state of emergency acts, which come through a bill called the Health and Wellbeing Act. And I've often said to people, the Health and Wellbeing Act is our version of the fucking Patriot Act. It is so similar. Like, you create this, and it's the same thing. Like, you, with the war on terror and the war on a virus, it's wars with a perpetrator that you can't see. It's looming over. It could be anywhere. It could be in your neighborhood. It could be and it's just, it creates a free pass to just continually allow fear and terror to write off legislations that they're doing. Seems like every couple of weeks they're just they're extending it. And even like the state of emergency laws constitutionally were only allowed to exist for 6 months for very good reason. And same with the state of disaster and the state of emergencies. They only exist for certain frameworks. But Daniel Andrews and his cabinet and people like Lisa Neville and James Molino, that all he has to do is talk with them, and then he can just write in new legislation to change it, which is what he's done with this omnibus bill, and that allows it to be brought out to April. So it started off with flattening the curve, and now we're 6 to 9 months in. We're going to be like, we're still going to be seeing this out in April of next year, most likely. And people always say, oh, it's going to be better after the 6 months. He's going to give you the roadmap, but all he does is give you crumbs and crumbs and crumbs. And most people, for the vast majority, are either just like tuning out, or they're just under so much Stockholm syndrome that they just, this is their reality now. Like, a lot of people are very, very frustrated, but it's just like, it's that typical question of like, what do you do next?
Yeah, and I think you're right that there are a lot of people who are. I mean, this is a psychological operation in a magnitude that I don't think we've ever seen. It's truly a global operation that is traumatizing people, down to from the adults to the children, and getting well-meaning, well-intentioned people who are coming from what they see as compassion to be terrified out of their minds and afraid of other human beings, and then to blindly follow everything that's going on. For everybody who's just joining us, we're talking with Dave of the Mindful Militants. He's involved very much in Australia, Melbourne, Australia. Of course, they're dealing with lockdown, so we've been hearing about that. And again, I want to invite you guys to check out our previous interview, which is at theconsciousresistance.com, back in January when the world was a bit different. And we talked more about Dave's work with the Mindful Militants, using freedom cells and mutual aid networks to build community and activism. We talked about all kinds of good things in that conversation. So now let's move to that. Let's talk about how, like you were sort of touching on earlier, having to find these different ways to go around this whole situation, right? You're, forging documents or whatever it may be, whatever you feel like comfortable saying, because like I said earlier, you guys are sort of, when we're looking on the timeline, I think Australia's maybe 5-6 months, maybe even a little further ahead than the US. But if I was sitting in the US right now, I would be thinking, holy crap, this is probably what's coming my way soon. If they can, if they can get their way too. And a lot of Americans look to Australia and say, well, they don't have very strong gun rights. So, your thoughts on that too, but let's talk about that, the solutions. Like, now that everybody knows these problems are happening, and you're a person experiencing this real life. This isn't just something people read on the internet. People are living through these realities. How do you, as somebody who cares about freedom, cares about independence, sovereignty, how do you deal with this situation?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, because they've restricted a lot of things, like our rights to travel, our rights to leave 5 kilometers. If you're leaving out of regional Victoria to go camping, you're not even allowed to go camping and self-isolate in a forest without copping a potentially $5,000 fine. And the language they use for these things, they'll create checkpoints around the city. And the Victoria police have a fun habit of just like using draconian terms. They literally call it the Ring of Steel. Like, that's what they call the checkpoints around the city. So when it comes to wanting to move freely, it takes a really strong mind to just sort of go out, not wear a mask, drive out and just be like, hey, if I get pulled over and I get fined, that's just the reality of that. Not everyone can do that. And, I've had to meet up with friends and have business meetings and have this and that. And I've also just wanted to just go, buy things from a hardware store, because a lot of some stores are allowed to be open, but they're only allowed to be open to trades workers or certain things. And you want to go get soil or stuff like that, that's not a delivery-based service, and it can be quite a struggle. So I guess the first step that we've sort of found is like reading into the documentation. What do you need? A lot of the times when it comes to bureaucratic totalitarianism, you can have all the understanding of your legal rights and your state-based rights and the Charter of Human Rights, and you can be fluent in that. But at the end of the day, what I've learned through all of this, it honestly doesn't really matter when it comes to dealing with frontline police officers, because it's always at their discretion. So the best thing I've found is just like speaking their robotic language of having the paperwork. And sometimes that's obviously there's some things I shouldn't say, but at this point, I've already been fined. I've already been watched by police. At this point, I don't really mind sharing the things that I've learned. But it comes to registering a business and, making a delivery service and being like, hey, I own a computer-based repair business. Then you can download the Victorian travel work permits and you can sign it. You can sign anyone else's employee, and you can travel around. And then that way, if you're dealt with a cop who, pulls you over for whatever reason, which happens, we drove past we had to go to the hospital the other day. We drove past a checkpoint and they were funneling people through and checking where they are and where are they going. You can at least give them the paperwork so they can calculate it in their brains and go beep, boop, boop, cool. This is a piece of paper, blah, 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 blah. Like you're allowed to now not get fucking molested as you travel on the road. So that's the best way I've sort of found it to be, as well as it's funny driving around the checkpoints. And we left to go camping for my birthday the other week, because I said if I have to spend my birthday dealing in suburbia with people that think I want to kill their grandma when I want to go get a coffee and breathe fresh oxygen, I'm going to go insane. So I'm like, let's go camping, let's go out with some of the crew. A lot of the Mindful Militants members crew came out, and that was a whole process of registering business, getting a tax file number, blah, 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 and doing all of this, and then driving along the freeway. And then it's funny because Google Maps will literally just say, hey, there's a freeway and there's this giant red line of traffic. That's probably a checkpoint. So you can just drive around it and drive down a different road. And they'll have all this, this was literally the week where they were putting all in the news of, we have the Ring of Steel. It's going to be $5,000 if you get caught in regional Victoria. And we drove all the way out, 3 hours out of Melbourne. We didn't see one cop the whole fucking time. So it's really hard to know what is genuine authoritarian flex and what is just fear, because fear is the biggest tool that they have in this. And there's so much Chinese whispers. I remember I would go get my coffee from a local place that I would go to, and a lot of the times they'd say, oh, you need to wear a mask, we can get fined, and that was just the narrative that I ran with, until it was only 3 days ago. I actually went on the DHH health government website, and it has a frequently asked questions, and one of them was if customers refuse to wear a mask, do I get fined? And it says no, the businesses don't even get fined if customers refuse to wear a mask. But it's just these Chinese whispers of fear that they use to instill in people. So if people start ending up enforcing policies they don't even understand for laws that don't even exist.
I just want to add to that, because it's a similar thing. The U.S. has been telling people in the United States since March that the borders are closed down, that there's no way to get out of, come to Mexico, that you can't come down here. I still have people asking me, well, aren't the borders closed down? And I've traveled back and forth a couple times now. But it's like you said, it's just sort of, they try to flex their powers in some ways, and then the rest of it simply relies on people complying, people just believing that they have that much power. Well, if I don't do this or I don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And a lot of times it's not, there's no enforcement, especially I will say here in Mexico, it's even more of a joke, where you can kind of see there's signs up everywhere. There's hashtag stay in your house. And, there's a lot of the businesses have signs about wearing masks and this and that, but you can walk in and just nobody does anything. Nobody bothers it. And in the US, I started trying to, because at first, kind of like you're saying, I started complying with it after coming to Mexico, back to the US. It was one day they announced, today at noon, you have to wear a mask in the entire city of Houston. It was holy crap, it's actually happening. And while I still, needed to go to the store for different things. And eventually though, after, a couple of times of doing that, me and my partner, I told her, I was like, why, let's just not do this. Let's just see what happens when we walk inside and don't wear it, and how people respond.
Yeah.
And nothing happened. Nobody bothered us, and then we started like, let's do it at another store. Let's do it, and then but so there's so much of it. Yeah, you have the potential of Karens or people yelling at you or this or that, the sort of good Samaritan statist or whatever. But generally, it, like you were getting to, a lot of it is just, it's scare tactics built on fear. And that is one of their biggest weapons. So you were giving some kind of practical tips about, at least in Australia, you have the ability to say that you have running like your own kind of private business, and then become, I guess, an employer, right? To be able to write these permits for other people. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
And then obviously being able to just use Google Maps or use the maps to circumvent I know that the app Waze, I think it got bought by Google, but I know that was one of the big reasons people were using the Waze app, is because it was, you could put cop is parked here, or, there's a speed trap over here, or try to keep people aware of what was going on when it came to checkpoints and stuff like that. What other kind, and then you talked about just straight up just going out, like, let's just get out there. You want to go out and camp, like, at some point, people need to accept that unless you're just going to be a blind, obedient slave, you are going to have to break the law. You are going to have to break law if you want to remain free. If you want to remain free, if you don't want vaccines forced on you, if you don't want to be confined to your homes, if you don't want to be fined, you're either just going to stay at home and do it anyways, and do it sort of begrudgingly, or you're going to say, you know what, I'm still going to live my life, and I'm going to find a way around this, which I think is what freedom cells and counter economics and agorism is really all about. It's like saying that we're not just going to listen to the state when we know that those laws are unjust, that they're immoral. And I do think that there will be a market, if this continues, a black and gray market for forged documents, for doctors who are willing to write vaccine exemptions and all these sort of things. So share any other tips you want to, just about the experience and how you as a group have been kind of handling it, both on the practical, but also like the spiritual and more moral level, like dealing with this reality. I'm sure that's also a big weight as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a big weight, and sometimes like you really got to not check your phone first thing when you wake up, because you can, like, when you're waking up in Victoria and you're checking a video of some lady that's been pulled over and harassed, and another old lady that's been arrested, and then like you're checking your flight radar app, and there's fucking helicopters that have been doing circles over your suburb in the middle of the night, and then there's another article about down in Frankston they're using drones on the beach to make sure you're not sitting down at the beach and making sure you're exercising. You can really weigh on your mind, but again, a lot of it is just this Chinese whispers, hysteria, people going along with the narrative and just buying it and not thinking twice about it. Like, we went to a store the other day where they have a it was like a bottle shop, which is Australian slang for like an alcohol shop. We walked in with three of us, none of us were wearing masks, and there's a security guard standing right there, and of course he's there to make sure. Well, they're there anyway at nighttime because it's a alcohol shop. But we walk in and there's a security guard standing there, and he's like, "Oh, where are your masks?" And we just straight up walk in. I'm like, "Hey man, like, I don't wear a mask and I don't want to wear a mask. That's that." And I just walked past him, and dude didn't even do anything. He just stood there and then didn't even really care. Like, he's not probably paid enough to care. Went and bought the alcohol, went to the counter. Now, keep in mind, the counters, like, they're wearing masks and they have a giant plastic riot shield that wraps around the entire fucking checkout. So there's literally no way I could even spread COVID to them. And then, there's this clerk there saying, "Oh guys, like, where are your masks?" And I'm like, "Man, I don't wear a mask. Like, can I just like get this and leave, please?" And then because you're allowed to have a medical exemption in Victoria. So if you say you have a medical exemption, you can be exempt from certain things. It's different for private business, but if you get pulled over by a cop, you say you have a medical exemption for not wearing a mask, under DHHS, you're not actually legally like required to provide a certificate or even have a certificate. So you can just say that. And my friend, by the way, some member was like, "I have a medical exemption." And he's like, "Oh yeah, what's the medical exemption?" He's like, "Yeah, I can think for myself," sort of thing. And then he turns around and he goes like, "Oh, do we have to serve these people?" And I thought it was kind of funny. The manager was like, "Yeah, you do." So they had to serve us. So a lot of these businesses, larger corporations, and I've been to places with like Woolworths and Coles and the larger stores, grocery stores, where you think you're not going to be allowed entry. I haven't been like rejected entry to like most places. Like, the only places I've had people be a bit more nervous with business owners, just like small businesses. And I say, hey, like, I'm very frank with them. I'm like, hey, I go in and I say, hey, if you're uncomfortable with me not wearing a mask, like, you can tell me that and that's fine. I'll just go get my coffee somewhere else. And a lot of them say, oh no, like, usually their number one response is like, oh no, it's just other people. other people get nervous. They bitch to us. They want us to make us the police. A lot of them don't actually care, and a lot of them like I've spoken to a few that they believe that it's kind of all bullshit as well, but they're just scared, and they're in this state of being bullied by other people. And it's just like you get into this narrative of just going along with it. And the thing that I find just the most, it's sort of daunting is when I'm bike riding home from my job and it's 9 o'clock at night and it's nighttime and someone's walking their dog around their block with a full face shield on and there's nobody around. I literally will sometimes stop on my bike, or if I see a neighbor taking his bins out to the end of the street with the mask on, I've started just giving them a quick little jolt of reality and going, hey man, what are you doing? Why are you wearing a mask? You're taking your bins out, brother. And just I think they need that. It's literally there's that fantastic story about the emperor's new clothes. If everyone just goes along with it and, just believes it, all it takes is that one little kid to go, hey, you're being a bit silly. And it's they start questioning about, oh wait, I am being a bit silly. And it's just you can do it in a polite way, in a compassionate way, in a caring way. But it is unfortunately the herd majority that will pull a lot of us into this. And I refuse to be pulled into that. And you never know who you're inspiring by just doing what you're doing. And I've even walked into stores where, I've waited to give people the grace of, buying their chocolate cakes, for example. And I've walked in and the clerk behind the counter doesn't put their mask back on because they see that I'm not wearing a mask and they feel comfortable to not wear it. So a lot of people are in that boat. They just have this social pressure, and a lot of it is. And there was a fantastic story that came out 2 days ago with this guy in Melbourne. He runs a store called Henry's Clothing. I'm not sure if you've seen it. He just opened his business. He's like, I'm fucking done with this. I'm opening my clothing store, and he sold out of his stock in the first 2 days. And the cops came and they said, oh, you can be fined 10 grand. He's like, find me. I'm not going to pay it. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to be on benefits. I've never been on benefits in my life. And here I am taking government benefits, which is what they want. They want us all on their payroll. So they're easily controlled. And he just opened it, and he's encouraging other people to do that. And there's been 20,000 something fines given out. Less than 4% have been paid. It's clogging the legal systems. I'm not even going to contest this fine. I'm just going to see if they even send me a remand letter. And if they send me a remand, then I'll contest it, because it's easily contesting. But it is that thing of just seeing how far the rabbit hole goes. And if for a lot of people that are afraid of wearing a mask, it's only I guess it's a lot of money for some people, but it's only $200. And if your freedom and your liberty and your personal philosophy of your sovereignty can be bought for $200, then maybe that's a conversation you need to have with yourself of do I really care enough, sort of thing. So
yeah, and I think that's a really important point, man. Well, first, thank you for sharing that, your experience on this, because it's so important for one, to know, for other people, as you said, to know that some people are pushing back, because something as simple as not wearing a mask can make another human being feel like, oh, okay, I can take this off, I can breathe. And I've had the same exact thing happen. In fact, when we're out, if we're around somebody, we notice that they're wearing the mask and maybe they seem like they don't want to, or they're kind of hesitant. We make it clear, you don't have to wear that because of us. Yeah. You are free to take that off around us, if you want to, and just making it clear to people, because it's they kind of connect, and there's a part of them that doesn't really want to do it anyways. But I guess that social pressure, or that fear of, well, some people are going to complain, or there's always this worry that somebody out there is going to do something about it, right? And so everybody's afraid of this mythical someone that's going to go tell on you if we don't run things this way. But it is that fear that drives the system, right? Because the states, at least here in the United States and other parts of the world, they basically threaten businesses. If you don't enforce these mandates, well, then we're going to fine you. So then the shit rolls down the hill, and everybody's like, well, I got to comply. But if people just start pushing back, I think it's such a powerful message. And I want people who are listening to this in the United States and the UK and elsewhere, who are, and we've got our brother Johan in India fighting as well, that people who are really seeing what's happening and who have concern and care for our brothers and sisters in Australia, this is the kind of shit that's coming your way if you don't push back against the smaller things, against the little things. If you let it progress, it will progress to the point where these are the kind of life decisions you're going to have to make. And you can either comply and stay home and be a comfortable slave, or you can choose to live your life. And as you were saying, Dave, just kind of let's see how far that I can take this, and how much of this is all based on fear and how much of it is based on, real enforcement. So I really appreciate you sharing with us. Anything else you want to mention on, this topic, freedom cells and just the lockdown? And I do want to, before you go, talk about a little bit more about just some of your work with freedom cells, because I'm going to put you on the spot, and we're hoping that you will join the Conscious Resistance network soon and start contributing your content.
Definitely.
And get us on there. I know that you guys already got a channel. You've got Instagram. You're just talking about an older video where, I'm looking at one with Victorian riot police from 5 weeks back. So you guys can find
horses.
Instagram and tell us all about that, about like some of the other work you're doing and what people can expect once you start contributing to the Conscious Resistance.
Yeah, so we're definitely leaning into making more content. We've been sort of like getting the tools of the trade ready for that. So a lot of content we want to make is more lifestyle content. We've got a lot of people who are passionate about gardening, a lot of people who are passionate about self-defense, a lot of people who are passionate about spirituality and meditation. So we want to lean into making content around that. Like I've been a massive fan of YouTube for a very long time. I follow a lot of YouTubers. I haven't watched TV since 2013. So a lot of my entertainers are YouTube-based creators. So I would love to sort of blend the worlds of activism and truth seeking and doing shit with like a YouTube format and have it be like, a lot of the YouTube creators, as much as I love them, their content is mindless, and it is that for entertaining. And I am passionate about, like, it doesn't always have to be, activism content doesn't always have to be like really, like heavy stuff. It can be really entertaining and really lovely to watch. There's some creators like Spencer Vibes and stuff like that who have blended that sense of community living and talking about spirituality and talking about the education system with that YouTube format. So that's something that we really want to do. Eventually we want to do more investigations. There are a lot of things happening in Australia, in Victoria, that need a lot more light shed on them. So a lot more journalistic content down the line. But right now we're sort of really wanting to do more commentary style stuff. I want to start going to council meetings in my area of Kingston and having eyes on that and seeing and just connecting the dots of who's who. And we've already started building databases on our websites of articles and instances of Victoria Police. We want to start doing that on a person basis for politics and stuff like that. So, and eventually, I would love to eventually start contributing to the Conscious Resistance. I've been a big fan of you and you guys for years, so contributing that kind of content would be fantastic. And now we have some of our members have moved up north to Byron Bay as well. So we have members in different other pockets of the country. So we're able to get content from up there where it's a much more people who are into like gardening and growing food and self-sustainability and stuff like that. And we want to document our journey in that because a lot of us are very young. We're still on that journey. Like we want to eventually acquire land, and we're still learning about the processes of doing that. So we want people to come and learn with us, and also make the process of collectivizing with your friends and creating a culture around that. That's something I'm really personally passionate about.
Yeah, lots of awesome stuff, brother. And I really do hope that the time comes very soon that things that you guys and your fellow Australians are able to push back against these measures, and that some sanity returns. And when that happens, I will happily be coming to visit you over there and inviting you down here to Mexico to see what we're doing as well. And the moment you're ready to contribute to the Conscious Resistance, you are more than welcome to. I appreciate the message and the work that you guys do. Once again, everyone, the website is mindfulmilitants.org. Please go over there, bookmark their website, visit them, subscribe to their social medias, the Instagram, the YouTube, learn more about the work that they do and how they're dealing with not only the chaos of COVID-19, 1984, but the positive work that they're doing, as Dave was talking about, getting into gardening and just really trying to expand the horizons here. And before we do close out, I want to remind everybody that we have been live. Just for those of you, I know most of you are probably watching this on Facebook or maybe afterwards on Library or BitChute or YouTube or elsewhere. But just so you can see, we are live on DLive as well. This is what DLives look like. DLive looks. And we're also live over here on float.app. So just to give you guys some alternatives, float.app/conscious resistance. That's where you can find all of our content, and you can see us live as well. And the same thing with DLive. So you don't have to be dependent on the Facebooks and the YouTubes of this world. Just as we're talking about alternative information and taking care of ourselves, we have to learn to not be dependent on these social media systems as well, because they do not represent our values. Yeah. So any final words, brother?
Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate coming on here and being able to talk on your platform and everything. And yeah, awesome conversations. Keep an eye out for like what continues happening in Victoria, as I will be making more content and more regular content, trying to get out maybe like one video a week, one video a fortnight at this point. But yeah, lots of things to come. So appreciate it, Derrick.
Yeah, and I just remembered one last reminder, everybody. If you enjoyed what you heard from Dave and you want to hear more, join us this Saturday for the Freedom Cell the 6th International Freedom Cell conference call. We'll be hearing from Dave and our brother Johan in India, both of them again describing what they're dealing with related to COVID, but also how they're providing solutions. So look forward to that on Saturday at noon Central. You can find more about that at freedomcells.org. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.
This is Derrick Broze. This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance. I'm here in Standing Rock.
That man is wanted in 5 different countries: Chile, Argentina, Brazil.
We've been fighting a long time. We have all lost so very much. So many loved ones gone. You are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Above all, stay alive. You have no idea